Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm now going to, I'm pleased to now welcome you to the presentation of the 26th AMO Gas Tax Awards. The Federal Gas Tax Fund is a unique program where infrastructure dollars flow directly from the federal government to municipal governments. As administrators of the fund, we are proud of the direct and open relationship we've developed with the Government of Canada. On that note, I would like to welcome Adam Vaughan, Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister, Intergovernmental Affairs, and Member of Parliament for Spadina-Fort, York. On behalf of AMO, thank you for being here today, Parliamentary Secretary Vaughan, and welcome to our annual conference. Out.
Thanks very much, Lynn, and congratulations. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territories of the Adawandran, the Anishinabeg, and the Haudenosaunee. There are new names to learn for all of us as we head towards truth and reconciliation, which is an important issue when I come to address you as the Parliamentary Secretary for the Prime Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs. One of my chief responsibilities, unfortunately it's not to hand out checks or to grant you infrastructure dollars, I don't have that power, but one of my responsibilities is to change the federal conversation around how we govern ourselves in this country, which has traditionally been a two-sided table with provincial and territorial governments on one side and the federal government on the other side, to turn that table into a four-cornered table. One that sees, yes, the federal government, provincial and territorial governments on some sides, but First Nations and municipalities on the other sides. This four-cornered table is the new way of doing things in this country if we're going to serve Canadians where they live and serve Canadians effectively. And that's one of the changes we're trying to bring about in terms of how we deliver programs up in Ottawa. Thank you. I have to say it's a little strange being from Toronto in an AMO conference. I bumped into Peter Milchin yesterday and said, you know, the only way a Toronto councillor gets here is to get elected somewhere else. But here I am nonetheless, and I'm here representing Minister Amarjeet Sohi, who is the Minister of Infrastructure, who unfortunately is not present because we're signing agreements across the country this week, and Ontario is coming very, very soon. But he sends his regrets and would like to thank you for the hosting that your office provided. I think he's the first federal Minister of Infrastructure ever to visit AMO's offices in 117 years, and I think that that's, again, an indication of the changes that we're bringing to the relationship between the federal government and municipalities across this country. Prime Minister Trudeau has set an ambitious agenda for the federal government. He's committed to making historic new investments in infrastructure, which total over $120 billion over the next decade. This includes $60 billion in new money for public transit, green infrastructure, and social infrastructure, which includes and is most defined by the housing program. In support of that commitment, we've been hard at work engaging Canadians, and in particular local officials and stakeholders, to set that agenda to make sure that cities and municipalities drive this infrastructure agenda. It's a change in Ottawa. We're not picking the projects. You're driving those projects towards us, and we're funding them. We're a new federal funding partner. We're changing that relationship. Minister Sohi, for example, has been working hard to make sure that we build sustainable, inclusive, and resilient communities that we're all proud to live in and creates the strong Canadians we need to build a stronger country. We believe that the best way to achieve results is to work together in partnership. We're strengthening that partnership, not just with Indigenous people and the federal government, but we're strengthening it with our provincial partners and our municipal partners in particular. We're strengthening that partnership with mayors, reeves, councillors, and all the municipal partners. Minister Sohi was an Edmonton City councillor. I was a Toronto City councillor. There's close to 40 of us in the Liberal caucus who have municipal experience. We're in the caucus room, around the cabinet table, and making sure the policies we create and deliver work on the ground in communities right across this country. We're working with you and for you. Thank you. So we asked you to talk to us when we got elected about what municipalities needed. We wanted to know how you could help us from end to end, from sea to sea to sea in this country, and deliver what Canadian communities need. A couple of things that we did that I think were critically important. The first was obviously increase the funding. But the second is that the unspent infrastructure dollars, the dollars that we can't get out the door, and we've had a problem in this country over the last 20 years, not getting all the infrastructure money committed into the hands of municipal partners to spend. We've made a critical change. The unspent money at the end of the year will be flowed straight back to municipalities through the gas tax. This is important because it's really easy to make an announcement and it's pretty easy to cut a ribbon, but if you don't cut the check, you haven't done the work. And we have hid behind, I think, as a federal government, not our government, but other governments have hid behind provincial agreements or provincial negotiations and said, look, we'd love to get you the money, but we haven't quite worked out the details. The goal here is to say, look, you need the money. If we can't work out the details, that you shouldn't be punished. In fact, you should get the money anyways. And that's the way the system is going to work. And so while we are negotiating with the province right now, and we're close to an agreement, if there are unspent dollars at the end of the year, they will flow within a province back to the municipalities in question. That's a commitment we made in the campaign. It's a commitment we made in the budget, and we will live up to that commitment at the end of the year. But we also know that the debate between allocation and application is a serious one. And we know that we don't live in your communities, and we can't always choose from 30,000 feet up, let alone from Ottawa, what the priorities are. And so we don't presume to know what works in Timmins or Toronto or Thorold. You know what works there. You drive this agenda. And that's what we've heard from our municipal partners, and that's what we're committed to working towards, to making sure that you get the priorities met that you have identified as your municipal priorities. So when we presented our budget, we presented the infrastructure in 2 phases. The other key difference, and you'll see this in phase 1, and you'll see it going forward, is that we have removed this firewall that used to exist between state of good repair and new projects. Not every community needs a new project. Some need to fix the existing infrastructure in order to build the capacity to have their communities grow and be served properly. We, for the first time, have allowed state of good repair or recapitalization of infrastructure to be one of the funding criteria. That, again, is critical, especially for smaller communities that are looking to grow but need to stabilize their infrastructure before they can actually entertain the new capacity that they're seeking to achieve. And as we lay the foundation with phase 1, rest assured the negotiations on phase 2, which is the overarching, the bigger projects, the long-term projects for long-term and sustained growth, phase 2 negotiations are already underway as we're finalizing some of the payments on phase 1. Minister Sohi is negotiating those bilateral agreements right across the country with provincial and territorial partners, and the funding is beginning to flow. To date, we've announced the signing of agreements in several provinces, Nova Scotia just this week, and we're very close to having an announcement here in Ontario, which is good news for all of us who live in this province. With communities focused on investment and upgrades to existing infrastructure, we're engaging Canadians now to talk about other programs. Let's talk housing. If you haven't visited the website, please do. The National Housing Strategy is another part of this infrastructure program. We've heard from the municipal partners. We know that we have to have a national housing strategy, and that's coming into existence as we speak. We know that these projects contribute to a lot of different things, to a modern, more cleaner economy, to a more inclusive society, and an economy better positioned to capitalize on the potential of global trade. We're taking time to plan and consult. We want to make sure that we hear you when we do this. We've consulted heavily on phase 1, phase 2, and we need to hear from you on the other infrastructure programs as well, the cultural and social infrastructure. Sometimes they don't flow through City Hall, but we need to have City Halls weighing in what those priorities are so we make sure we build cities, not just infrastructure. Build municipalities, not just projects. We build communities and not simply just build bank accounts in municipal city halls and town halls across the province. Ladies and gentlemen, conferences like this are a wonderful opportunity to see what past infrastructure projects have been built across Ontario and to talk about the future as well. And I know that over the last few days, you've been having very focused conversations about how to deliver this infrastructure. I sat in on the water infrastructure sessions yesterday on the affordable housing, which is an issue dear to my heart. And I've been talking with mayors and reeves and councillors about projects that are coming forward in your communities. One of my jobs as the Parliamentary Secretary for Intergovernmental Affairs is a little unique. It's not really just to deal with the provinces and First Nations. It's to make sure that mayors and city councils and towns have an ability to have effectively an ambassador in Ottawa to steer your projects through. I know from my time in municipal council, when you put a new road in and there's an underpass with the railways, how tough it can be to negotiate with the railways while you're trying to get the money from transportation to get the road project done, while you're trying to also get the infrastructure approval, while you're also trying to capture the attention of the environmental assessment process if it crosses a creek as well. Many of the infrastructure programs straddle 2 or 3 federal ministries. One of them can hold up a project and cause you to miss a construction season. My job is to be your agent around the cabinet table, around caucus, up in Ottawa. If you run into one of these problems, your first point of contact is the minister. But if you can't figure out where the logjam is, call me. My job is to finesse that through to get the three ministers on the same page and to get you the project money you need to deliver the infrastructure to strengthen your community. That's a change. And it's a change that I think is one that we've articulated because we know how complex it can be to get money out of Ottawa when you've got competing bureaucracies stopping projects from flowing forward. This is the new relationship, and it's a new relationship that we think is going to build a stronger country. Before I conclude, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about the gas tax fund. I know I don't need to speak about it at great length because all of you get to spend it every year and you're very familiar with it, but the awards we're about to see are what happens when you have strong partnerships. And that's the goal here, strong partnerships. No longer can you say, we hope, that the federal government is missing in action. We're here, we're back, not just on the international stage, in your community. And we're here to partner with you to build as strong a country as possible, and we know that starts by building good, strong neighborhoods and good, strong communities right across this country. You're the leadership that we're relying on. We're here to help you. Thank you very much.